Welcome back. You're watching Commodity Champions, and India's green energy transition got a big push at the India Energy Week with over 650 companies exhibiting in the summit. I caught up with Saurabh Singh of Kearney. Here's what he has to say about green financing, current ecosystem and more. Saurabh, thank you so much for joining us here on CNBC-TV18, and so much is being talked about digitization, digital, energy transition, etc. What's your take, first of all, on all of this from India Energy Week?
No, thank you, Manisha, first for having me here. Just great to be speaking to you right now. The way I look at it, I mean, if I were to look at the energy world, I see 5 disruptive themes that are going to change the way we are looking at this sector. The first is the transition from molecules to electrons, basically the rise of electrification. The second big theme that I see is the advent of technology. It is all kinds of technology, not just digital, but even other disruptive technology within each of these sectors. The third thing that I'm looking at is convergence. It is the convergence of the energy value chain. You have oil and gas players getting into the electricity business and vice versa as well. So it's a very, very interesting play. And the fourth thing is the rise of green financing, which I think could be a game changer in the overall sector. And last but not the least, I see a big shift in the positions that various players are taking across the value chain. So overall, a very, very interesting set of dynamics that are happening there. And in my mind, energy sector, which, if I may use that word, was considered staid and boring 15 years ago. There was a lot of question around young talent talking about, should I even be in this sector? Is it for me? Right now, you have young talent queuing up, literally queuing up and saying, I want to work in this sector because this is where we are really changing the world. If you're talking about the millennials and the Gen Zs, they are the ones who are talking about being part of hydrogen, being part of CCUs, being part of the overall decarbonization story, and believing that they're making a difference to the planet.
Oh, absolutely. I think sort of when you talk about solar and EVs and nitrogen and hydrogen and various launches that we've seen, especially happen during, and collaborations in IEW clearly have a lot of push happen here. How do you look at all of that taking off all at the same time, or do you think there is going to be a 1, 2, 3 within this space as well?
Got it. So let me just give you a few data points which I think will corroborate what I've said, right? So like a couple of years ago, 75% of the incremental power capacity globally was renewables. Come to think of it, that is phenomenal. I mean, a watershed moment in Europe was when for the first time, I think it was in 2020, they sold more renewable energy in unit terms than they sold thermal. 38% as against 37%. I mean, some of these things are basically showing that there's a change that's happening. Is everything happening at the same time? The answer is no. Of course, I think there are some trends which are more here and now, and there's also a bit of a geographical implication of it, right? So, for example, Europe obviously is way ahead in some matters. A geography like India, the dynamics are different for us, the requirements are different, and we are, kind of catching up. But the market is also rewarding those players. I think last year or so, the renewable energy shares went up by 142%, while the oil and gas shares went down by 38%. Now that is the kind of difference that's coming in. So if you ask me, the push on renewable energy, that is here and now. That's happening even as we speak. The push that's happening in India, right? $500 billion odd investment over this decade is phenomenal, and a lot of it is very, very real. There are similarly, EV, I would say, is again a phenomena which is catching up. Will it happen overnight? We don't think so. But I think by 2040, our expectation is that more than 50% of the vehicles sold will be EV by then. And then there is, of course, hydrogen, the big thing that everybody seems to be talking about. And incidentally, we are behind some of the largest hydrogen-related work that's happening in India, working with some of the best and brightest and some of the largest announcements that have been made.
Are there going to be a lot of infrastructure changes as well then, as we talk about newer energies?
So yes, I mean, there is an ecosystem that has to be developed around these if you want to make it successful. So be it the development of cryogenics, for example, as you want to move things around, be it the entire ecosystem for developing electrolyzers. I mean, the number of people who are contemplating that right now in a geography like India itself is not funny. I mean, there's a lot of interest in setting it up, and I can tell you this is going to be big business.
Shapoorji Pallonji Oil and Gas have built one of India's largest floating vessel for ONGC. The vessel is expected to reach the domestic waters before the end of December. At the India Energy Week, S. Ravi Shankar, Director and CEO of Shapoorji Pallonji Energy, explained to me on how these vessels work and what is the opportunity for India.
Most of the fields are operated on cost recovery basis. So the people are investing on the fields and they are recovering cost on putting up the Christmas trees or subsea architecture, drilling, etc. But what is happening is that we are coming in between. When the fields are fully ready for taking out the condensates, we don't call it as an oil, the condensates, which is a combination of oil, gas, mercury, sulfur, carbon dioxide, water, everything is there. And it is not closer to the land to be evacuated and the shore facilities could be done. So we built these kinds of floating storage and offloading system. So we take those condensates through a turret mooring system. A turret mooring system is the one which is weather vaning. This FPSO will be stationed in the same place for any number of years, 15, 20 years. And whereas it will revolve around that place so that with the weather, waves and other things, it takes care of it. So we take the water out first, we purify the water, add certain chemicals, inject them back into the wells to get more power for the wells to lift oil.
What is the cost of doing this? I mean, for making something like this, to cost of production or processing, as you might call it, what is the break-even like?
Okay, it's simple thing is that these are all built to the specification of that particular field. The condensates which are coming out from field to field are different. So if I'm making one FPSO, it cannot be used in another FPSO because the field is different, the heat is different, the flow assurance is different, the characteristics are different, the mid-ocean conditions are different, wave heights are different. So some of them cost us somewhere about $400 million. It goes up to $3 billion, the cost of making one. So normally we give these vessels for a long-term charter for a period of between 9 years to 10 years, and it is extendable up to 20, 25 years, it can do that. So we work on a fixed day rate. So the cost of production is not for us, it's for the oil field operators, which comes to that, but it's a significant portion of that is paid to us as a charter hire.
And what kind of a market do you see for this going forward?
We foresee between now and the next 10 years, at least about 40 to 50 FPSOs, aggregating totally about, let's say about 100 to 150 billion dollars worth of contracts to be coming out in the market, only for the asset is concerned. The potential of largest number of engineers. In fact, all these projects we have built with an Indian engineers, Indian construction team, Indian commissioning. Nobody has done it. And we are the only company in India to do this, along with the fixed platforms. Together, the fixed platforms in the group and the floating, in the Western offshore, we process almost about 26% of the condensates which is produced. Globally, it sets an opportunity with a share investment of about $1 billion in some of the shipyards. India can export per year $7 to $10 billion worth of these things every year. If you see that, the opportunity what we are creating to the Indian industry is enormous, what we are given.
Amid the intense volatility in the crude oil market impacted by geopolitical tensions, Vandana Hari of Vanda Insight doesn't see crude prices heading towards $100 per barrel. Speaking to me at the India Energy Week, she also said that Chinese demand will not return swiftly.
So 2022 was a year of uncertainties, 2023 no less. The nature of uncertainties have changed. So 2022, first part, we started off with the world coming out of COVID. And then, of course, once the Ukraine war started, that completely changed the dynamics. I think 2023, the main theme is going to be the global economic growth, obviously. And we are already seeing oil prices respond very directly to the sentiment in the markets. And then to some extent, OPEC Plus have taken a back seat. They are in a wait and watch mode. The oil markets are also in a wait and watch mode with regards to China. So yes, China is opening. I think it's a no-brainer that their demand will come back. But does it come roaring back or does it come back gradually? I think we still don't know.
You know, I want to take the major question out of the way before we move any further, and that's about the crude oil prices, because that is something everybody seems to be debating on. Are we looking at tighter markets as we go ahead? Are we looking at 100 coming back? What's your sense?
So I'm not in that camp of Uber bulls calling for $100 a barrel. And the reason for that is that I do not expect Chinese demand to come back, bouncing back so fast that it takes everybody by surprise, especially OPEC Plus. And the other reason is that OPEC Plus does have some spare capacity. They reduced their target by 2 million barrels per day. Actual supply reduction is, of course, much less. It's closer to about 500,000 barrels per day. But they could put that amount of oil back into the market. I think we'll also see some sort of price elasticity in terms of demand. So global economy is not going to do as well this year. So we will see a little bit of drop in demand from other parts of the world, which will also offset China's coming back. So 100 plus, of course, never say never, but I hope not, and I don't think so.
With that, it's a wrap on this edition of Commodity Champions. News continues on CNBC TV 18. Do stay tuned.